Hello, my name is Ishaaq Hajee and I am a PhD candidate in the SIBA research group at the University of Cape Town. Today I will be presenting my study on using microbially-induced calcite precipitation to alleviate the traditional shortcomings of the co-disposal method. I'd like to begin with a brief aim of my study, which is to use microbially-induced calcite precipitation to provide structural support and to prevent oxidant ingress in co-disposed beds. This will lead to the prevention of acid rock drainage generation. So what is acid rock drainage? Well, the exploitation of coal and metallic mineral resources results in the production of large quantities of wastes containing significant amounts of sulfide minerals. These sulfides become susceptible to chemical and biochemical oxidation, producing highly acidic metal-laden leachates referred to as acid rock drainage or ARD. ARD can be sustained for hundreds of years and is the single biggest environmental problem facing the mining and mineral industry. It causes a range of environmental issues, especially with regards to the loss of underground water resources, since water scarcity is already a serious issue in South Africa. ARD mitigation can be broken down into two broad categories: remediation and prevention. Remediation works on treating ARD that already has been generated and includes the treatment of ARD with lime, anionic bioreactors, constructed wetlands, and permeable reactive barriers. As the name suggests, the aim of ARD prevention techniques are to prevent the generation of ARD, and these methods include the use of water covers, bactericides, organic acids, flotation, and co-disposal. One of the methods that will be used in this study is co-disposal. This method involves co-disposing or blending reactive mine waste with potentially acid-consuming or alkaline-producing material such as desulfurized tailings. A previous study co-disposed low-sulfide coal waste obtained from flotation with acid-generating coal interburden. The study used two packing protocols: a layered configuration where alternate layers of benign tailings and coal interburden were packed in the column, and a blended configuration where the benign tailings and the coal interburden were mixed together in the column. The blended approach was used to assess the effectiveness of using benign tailings to blind the sulfide-rich interburdens to oxidants, and the layered approach was conducted to develop capillary barriers with cascading neutralization. They found that ARD prevention was largely dependent on the restriction of flow through the bed. At the large scale, however, both the blended and layered configurations showed an increase in effluent flow rate after exposure to irrigation. The blended systems showed this increase at around day 40, and the layered system showed these around day 80. A decrease in pH was also observed for both systems. For the blended system, this was seen around day 30, and for the layered system, this was seen around day 80. It was thought that the larger bed cross-sectional area reduced the degree of interlock between particles, and this structural weakness led to increased flow rates and accordingly exposed the sulfide-rich coal discards to oxidation, which resulted in the formation of ARD and the resulting reduction in pH. Hence, structural stability is crucial in co-disposal systems to ensure long-term success. In order to address the aforementioned concerns in an environmentally conscious manner, in this study, the co-disposal technique is further explored together with a naturally occurring phenomenon known as microbially-induced calcite precipitation. Bacteria such as Porosacina pasteurii have the unique ability to produce significant volumes of urease, an enzyme that catalyzes the hydrolysis of urea into ammonia and carbonate. The degradation of urea in the presence of calcium results in the creation of favorable conditions for calcite precipitation in the extracellular microenvironment. MICP has the ability to cause short and long-range clogging in porous media, improve shear strength, and reduce water permeability in soils. As mentioned previously, MICP also leads to an increase in the pH of the microenvironment. Biosandstone has been produced using MICP, which resulted in a material with high shear strength, and scanning electron microscopy studies have been conducted to demonstrate the ability of MICP to bind sand particles. These studies suggest that MICP has the potential to reduce voids and improve bed stability in co-disposed tailing beds. The setup used for my study is shown here. I've used conventional 60 milliliter syringes as the bioreactors, and my packing configurations are shown here, where bioreactors contained pure coal discard, pure fine waste, a mixture of fine waste and coal discard packed in a layered configuration, and a mixture of coal discard and fine waste in a blended configuration. All bioreactors were irrigated with a cementing solution containing urea and calcium chloride. Additionally, two types of inoculation methods were used. Inoculation via irrigation, where the Sporosarcina pasteurii was irrigated through the columns using irrigation, or inoculated via agglomeration, where the coal discards and fine coal tailings were agglomerated with the inoculum prior to packing into the bioreactors. Of course, the study also included a control where the bioreactors were not inoculated. Seen here are the effluent volumes obtained from the bioreactors over the 60-day experiment. A decrease in effluent flow shows the production of calcite, which clogs the bioreactors and therefore is a desirable outcome. The first bioreactor to clog was the agglomerated blended bioreactor, followed by the irrigated blended bioreactor. This may be due to the just fit phenomenon when 3:2 coal discard to fine waste is used in a blended co-disposal system, which may provide the limited pore space required for bridge-forming MICP to occur and ultimately lead to efficient clogging of these systems. The agglomerated blended bioreactor clogged after just 11 days, and the irrigated blended clogged on day 21, which indicates that the inoculation method has a significant effect on MICP in the blended system. Interestingly, the irrigated fine waste bioreactor was clogged on day 29 for 4 days when effluent was observed again, which indicated breakthrough of the bioreactor bed. This is an unwanted phenomenon since breakthrough of the bed would lead to oxidant ingress and ultimately ART generation in these systems. However, impressively, the bed clogged again on day 46 and stayed that way until the end of the treatment phase of the study. This self-healing ability observed in the bioreactor is promising in terms of long-term application of the MICP co-disposal system. When looking at the MICP mechanism, urease breaks down the urea into ammonium and carbonate. The released ammonium increases the pH, which creates an environment that is suitable for Sporosarcina pasteurii, that is between pHs 7 and 9. Therefore, monitoring the pH of the effluent allows us to observe the urease activity as the pH increases to between 8 or 9. All inoculated columns clogged when their pH value was close to pH 8. Except for the control blended bioreactor, which followed the agglomerated coal discard bioreactor, all other bioreactors were clogged when the redox conductivity values were between 100 and 150 millivolts. Although no studies have investigated the redox conductivity of MICP reactions, it can be assumed that the calcite-forming reactions occur within the 100 and 150 millivolt band. The exact redox couple that causes this phenomenon is unknown, and studies are being conducted by us to elucidate the relationship between redox conductivity and calcite generation. Taken together, it can be said that MICP occurs in these mine waste bioreactors at pH values between 8 and 9 and redox conductivity values between 100 and 150 millivolts. After the 60-day period, the bioreactors were allowed to dry and acid wash tests were conducted to determine the calcite content in the top and bottom half of the bioreactors. The standout bioreactor in this experiment was the agglomerated coal discard bioreactor, which yielded a staggering 769 milligrams per gram of calcite. As with all bioreactors that only contained coal discard, the calcite content was expected to be the lowest since the larger pore size significantly decreases the retention time of the cementing solution and thus reduces the likelihood of calcium to form, especially towards the top of the bioreactor. Due to the large pore size present in the coal discard bioreactors, there was sufficient oxygen for bacteria to thrive, and it was likely that a small pocket of cementation solution was upheld, and this led to crystal seeding, which then grew to impede solution flow through the bioreactor. However, the crystal seeding in the coal discard reactors are unpredictable due to the packing limitations and the large pore sizes associated with this material. Calcite content alone does not translate to an improvement in structural stability. Although the irrigated layered bioreactors contained more calcite than the irrigated blended bioreactors, the irrigated blended contained almost 5 times more calcite in the bottom half of the bioreactor than the irrigated layered bioreactor. In the top half of the irrigated layered reactor, a solid column can be observed. However, the alternating layers below show no visible calcite formation and no structural improvement was seen, especially in the cold discard layers, which slumped out when the bioreactors were opened. Visually, the controlled blended bioreactor looked very similar to the irrigated blended bioreactor, with a solid column forming in the top half and a well-bound bottom half. Unlike the layered bioreactors, the control layered bioreactor clogged, and when visually comparing the control layered bioreactor to its inoculated counterparts, the two fine waste layers formed a stiff column with no obvious cracks. Thus, it is likely that no preferential flow paths were formed in the control bioreactor, and under these conditions, clogging is possible when using the layered packing configuration. In the control layered bioreactor, the cold discard layers did not contribute structurally, as was evidenced by the cold discard particles slumping out of the bioreactor. In conclusion, to the best of our knowledge, this is the first time that calcite was successfully generated in heterogeneous co-disposed coal waste beds via MICP. The formation of calcite successfully prevented oxidant ingress in co-disposed beds packed in the blended configuration, and a significantly reduced flow was observed in beds packed in the layered configuration. The results presented here suggest that the total concentration of calcite in the bioreactor is not as important as the distribution of calcite throughout the system. Although layered bioreactors showed higher total calcite content than their blended counterparts, the blended bioreactors showed higher calcite content in their bottom halves and thus a better calcite penetration depth. The better calcite penetration depth led to bioreactors with structural improvements that were visually observable, especially when compared to the layered bioreactors. Thus, in terms of the inoculated bioreactors, the irrigated blended was the most promising for our hybrid MICP co-disposal system in terms of clogging time, calcite content, and calcite penetration depth. These are my references, and I'd like to thank you for your time.